So, welcome back from the break. We now go to our second part of this festive afternoon, and it's questions and comments for Dennis Prager, but please keep your questions and your comments as short as possible so we can get the more questions.
Do the questioners or commenters have microphones?
They will have one.
Oh, good. That's great.
Yeah.
By the way, the fact that most of you returned is a good sign.
And please state your name.
Lars Tyler, thank you very much for all your work, and I love your criticism of people with strange, PODs in shit who are destroying, the world community. I will ask you, do you consider Muslim immigration as a problem? Because I do.
Right. I'm not shocked. People who come anywhere with a different value system constitute a problem. It's not anti-Muslim. Everybody in this room knows there are individual Muslims who are wonderful human beings, individual Christians who are awful human beings, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody knows that. So let's leave the world of the lie that this is an attack on people as people. If Islam and the West had the same values, then it would be a non-issue. Look at America. Who comes to America? Overwhelmingly, it's people from Latin America. And they don't come with the same freedom values that Americans have, but they come with many of similar values. In other words, the person coming from Mexico or Honduras or any Central American, South American country already comes, for example, obviously from a Christian background. So there will be some similarities. They're not identical by any means. And as I have said for many years, when people from Latin America vote for the left in America, namely the Democratic Party, why would you vote for what you ran away from? They represent the values that ruined your countries. So why would you do that? And by the way, more and more Latin Americans in America, Latinos as they're called, except in the New York Times, which calls them Latinx. You don't know this. It is an indictment of the New York Times in the first order, Lantinx, because they won't say that they are Latinos because that's masculine. So they say Latinx. You're looking at me like, what? Which is exactly how I look at it. What? So I understand that. Anyway, these people are more and more voting conservative in the United States, and this is a very big threat to the Democratic Party, which is no longer a liberal party, but a left-wing party. But yes, most Muslims coming to the United States come from countries where, for example, liberty is not a value. What Muslim-governed country is as free as a European country? I can't think of any. And there are Muslim-dominated countries that are the antithesis of freedom. Syria is an obvious example. Iran isn't, but they're not coming here from Iran, so it's not an Arab country, so it's a separate issue. So yes, it's a very real problem. Angela Merkel made it possible to a large extent. So I will tell you a phrase that I came up with years ago, with the understanding that, again, there are many individual, wonderful Germans, but my view of history since Bismarck is Germany is always wrong. And when you know that, you can understand much of European history. And Angela Merkel, undoubtedly a sweet woman, she was another example. I don't know why, when God gave out wisdom, he passed over Germany. I don't know why. He gave them the greatest musical talent in the history of the world. I mean, it's unbelievable. I conduct orchestras periodically. I'm very much into music. And, you know, I was actually thinking, and I'm still thinking of it, of dedicating one of my books, because I've done it to friends and family. So I'm thinking one of them I will dedicate to Haydn and Bach, because they have given me so much joy all of my life. For you. Yeah. Mozart is wonderful. He's just not up there with me. I'm sorry. I apologize. It's an individual thing. But in any event, that is a tragedy, and what she did was tragic. She is a good example of what is one of the most common errors in the human condition. People think they do not need wisdom, they only need good intentions. If you mean well, that is all that matters. That is the Achilles heel. That is the basic error of the left. How did so many decent people support communism? How is that possible? The greatest mass murdering machine in history, because they had good intentions. That's it. Good intentions is the opposite of wisdom. Very little evil has been committed by people with bad intentions. Overwhelming evil has been caused by people with good intentions and no wisdom. Wisdom is everything, everything. And the post-religious, the post-biblical age has no wisdom. Here is something that will challenge many of you who are secular. Name me a secular institution that has wisdom. You can't. There doesn't exist. Secular institutions are filled with knowledge, but no wisdom. The university is the least wise place in the Western world. It is because it is the most secular place. Many religious people are also fools. I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about institutions. There is no wisdom in the secular world. There is only knowledge. And the lack of wisdom is the cause of evil. Okay, in a nutshell. And she had good intentions, these poor people from Syria and other places, and they are poor people. My heart goes out to them, to be honest. I have said all of my broadcast life, I'm broadcasting for 40 years in America. If I were a Latin American, I would go into America illegally. Okay? I completely identify with these people's desire to live in the United States of America. But that's not a reason to let millions in. It's a reason to sympathize with them. That's a separate issue. Okay. I'll try to be briefer.
Okay. Well, I hold the microphone, so I'll ask the next question. Dennis Prager, you talk about the left. How do you describe the left? I know you distinguish between left and liberalism and liberals. So can you please elaborate on...
So I have a piece on the internet, 32 differences between left and liberal. And it's worth, I also have a video at PragerU, which gives 7 differences in 5 minutes, in case you don't have the time. I grew up as a liberal Democrat, because I'm a Jew from New York. It's redundant. Every Jew in New York is a liberal Democrat, or almost. And so I asked my relatives who were disappointed in me, and who still love me, to their credit, I asked them, can you name one value I had when I was a liberal that I don't have now that I am a conservative? And they never have an answer. There are none. I have the same values I had. The only one, to be honest, there is one. I didn't understand, until Ronald Reagan, I did not understand the dangers of big government. That's when I became a Republican. People ask how we can change minds in 5 minutes at Prager University on the internet. I tell them, Ronald Reagan changed my mind in 1 sentence. He didn't need 5 minutes, and he did. I became a Republican when he said, government is not the solution, it is the problem. And I realized, why did I miss that my whole life? And I did. I felt foolish. And that's when I became a Republican. Limited government is the solution. America was founded that I take care of me, I take care of my family, I take care of my community. Every other country was founded, the government takes care of me, the government takes care of my family, the government takes care of my community. Which worked better? Simple as that. So, but I'll answer you with a few specifics. Liberals believe in free speech, leftists do not believe in free speech. Liberals believe in racial integration, leftists believe in racial segregation. Liberals supported Israel, the left hates Israel. Liberals were pro-capitalism, leftists hate capitalism. So there's 5 already.
Michael Jordan. I'd like to ask you, I'm sure most of us who are here today know you through YouTube. Most Danes do not know you, and we sit here really thinking, could we have something similar to Rutgers going on in Denmark? And therefore, I would like to ask your recommendations to us. How would we go about that? What's the central steps to take? Is it funding, devotion, hard work, courage? What would you say if Elon Musk also handed you 10 billion to make Rutgers University, no, sorry, your university global, or having
Right. Well, it is global,
collaborators?
but yes.
Yeah, but even more
yes,
so.
It's funny you should ask this. I always take a risk being very open, but it's a risk that has benefited more than hurt. So my wife, who's with me, and is, thank God, often with me, so she can testify how often in America people stop me to take a selfie, to say something nice, like the police did. and I haven't been stopped once here. And we were stopped in Poland by the Lot pilot, a young man who knew the name of my dog, which is a good sign. And of course, what I'm saying to you has nothing to do with ego. I'm sure you know that's true, but I just want to make it clear. It's actually somewhat of a relief just to walk around anonymous for a change. But it is sad. What you say is sad, not just about Prager University, about any conservative movement. See, America is a very, very mixed bag right now. America is the source of many of the worst ideas in the Western world. The woke ideas are coming from America. Even Macron, who's on the left, condemned American ideas that are coming into France, like the men give birth. So, and I just heard, is it correct that the daughter of your previous prime minister said she was a boy and had her breasts removed? Is that correct? Well, you're ahead of us. No daughter of a president of the United States has said that yet. It's really yet correct. My wife corrected me, which is what wives are for. And yet is correct. By the way, I'm not making light of it. I would bet, and I'm not a gambler, I have no interest in gambling, but I would bet a great deal of money that within 20 years she will deeply regret her decision to cut her breasts off and say she's a man. The number of people who had their bodies mutilated in the name of this transgender craze and then later regret it, the press doesn't cover them because the press lie. They lie for a living. But there is enough alternative media to report on all the people who change sexes or claim to have changed sexes and then regret it. So America is a mixed bag. America is the source of these bad ideas, but America is also the place with the most powerful opposition. Prager University last year, this is public knowledge, so this is not a secret, is we have in America something, I don't know if you have it here, we call it 501c3s. These are organizations that are considered charitable organizations. In other words, they're not for profit. Nobody is making a profit at PragerU. The money goes back into programs, but you cannot tell people how to vote. That's the condition. And we don't tell people how to vote. But we raised last year in America $60 million. That's incredible in Europe for a conservative organization to raise that amount of money, because we have a lot of wealthy conservatives. By the way, half our money comes from non-wealthy people. Half of it comes from $5 and $10 and $50 on the internet. We have a very, very big conservative movement in the United States. So woke comes from America, and conservative activism comes from America. How will Europeans have a large conservative opposition? I can't answer your question because I don't know. Well, I'll tell you another major advantage in America, what I have been doing for 40 years, talk radio. Talk radio is the biggest single conservative organization in the United States, bigger than PragerU, bigger than Daily Wire, bigger than any organization. Tens upon tens of millions of people every single day listen to talk radio in the United States. And we have a big effect. And my program is 3 hours a day. With commercials, it's 2 hours. But it's 3 hours, and we touch a lot of lives, and have. And the left hates us, and they would love to close us down. You don't have talk radio in Europe. I think they just started something in the UK, conservative talk radio. I hope it succeeds. But it's really unique to America. So I don't have an answer for you because we have so many advantages in spreading conservative ideas in America that you don't have here. I can only tell you, you have to fight. You have to do what you are doing. You have to write articles. You have to put things up. Now Twitter is a free world. Tweet things. Tweet this address. Put it. Somebody should translate it into Danish. And my appeal is mostly to young people, believe it or not. 65% of the people watching PragerU are under 35 years of age. And I'm not young. But it doesn't matter. But of course, I'm not the only presenter either. I just want to make that clear. But young people don't care if you're old. They care if you're relevant. They care if you make sense. They couldn't care less how old I am. In fact, everyone okay? Okay. In fact, I have an interesting little anecdote for you. I began speaking, I told you, when I was 21. When I began speaking, I remember thinking, why would any young person listen to me? I'm their age. Why would they take me seriously? I don't have that problem now. So ironically, you gain credibility with young people as you get older. The trouble is, older people have given them no wisdom. We now have a society of old fools and young fools. That's the tragedy. But anyway, so you have to develop a core here, but with your taxation rates, you probably don't have as many wealthy conservatives as we have in America. But people need to hear these ideas, and you have to figure out how to get it out to them.
Lone Nørgaard, thank you very much for your speech. I couldn't get my hands down. I have several questions. I'll try to make it short. You said that US had no Gestapo. In a way, they had. And you said it yourself that people were being attacked, and doctors were taken, their licenses were taken away from them. So I think that they really had sanctions. So this was more of a comment. Then I have two big questions, and what is your take on Andrew Tate? And what do you think of the Great Reset?
What's the Andrew Tate issue? Why have I missed that?
He's a British.
Yeah, so tell me.
You know, if
I feel bad that I don't know, but I don't.
If you don't know him, then I thought you knew about him.
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
Actually, in his own opinion, he's the most Googled man in the world, and he is a former kickboxer champion. And he has been deplatformed from all social media. And my opinion is, and this is what he tells us himself, he is being deplatformed because he says all the right things about men and women. Of course, there are two sexes. And he gives opposition to the woke culture. And he gives, pardon my French, he gives the fuck finger to Western civilization, and he has just converted into Islam. He's a very, very interesting character, so I can really recommend him.
It's an odd decision.
Very, very odd, but it makes sense when you listen to him.
Then I will have to listen to
His
it.
whole thing is that Western civilization no longer recognizes the masculinity of men. Islam still does. Maybe that's the reason.
I think. Look, I'm based solely on what the two of you have told me. I think it's a silly decision. Okay. The answer to the Western demotion of masculinity is not to take up a religion which puts women in veils. It's a very odd. By the way, just for the record, that's what the left did in the West, is put people in veils for the last 2 years, and most people said fine. So the very people who know that it's dehumanizing in Islam didn't know it was dehumanizing in the name of health. I came up with a statement 10, 20 years ago, health über alles. Remember Deutschland über alles? This is now health, Gesundheit über alles. Health above all. If you say health, no rights matter. Just say health, and people bow down. The list of false gods in our time is a very large list. Health is the biggest. You can do anything to people in the name of health. You can ruin their health in the name of health, let alone take away their liberty. That's a very stupid decision of that man. Unbelievably stupid. He has done nothing for humanity in converting to Islam from the West. Nothing. Is he going to now, is he going to attack Islam the way he attacks the West? I'm curious. Will he say, you know what, we treat women like dirt? Will he do that? Will he oppose clitoridectomies? Will he say you can't take girls' clitorises off? Will he say women should have the right to drive a car in Saudi Arabia? Will he say that women have the right to walk around with their face showing, or even in a miniskirt? Will he say that? No. So he's a phony. Okay. It's not hard to get me angry. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is August. Nice to be here with you today. I'd like to ask you about the fact that you mentioned God as the right giver to the people of Earth. How do you think about the sentence that no right without power?
No what without power?
No rights without power.
No rights without power? I never heard the phrase, so explain it to me.
My deal with it is that all our rights are given upon us by powerful individuals, states, and
yes.
States
So so you have a choice. Either your rights are given to you by powerful states or by God. That's your choice.
So are you saying that it's up to the individual power to decide which going you are, or which choice you make?
Every society, this is a societal decision, an individual. Do I have my rights because the government gives them to me or because God gives them to me? If you think it's because the government gives them to you, then you obviously don't cherish freedom. That's why the American Declaration of Independence said our rights are from God. That's your choice. Most Europeans say they come from the government. That's the price of a secular continent.
Hi, Dennis. It's nice to meet you here. My name is Marion. I'd like to ask you, you say so much about this individual value code. We have in Denmark for many years had a system who have been built due to the welfare system that, as you say, the government take care about you, which give the main population the feeling of leaving behind the, can we say, the responsibility of their own life in the hands of the government. Which gives me the question to you now. How can we change that when we have had for many, many generations a kind of indoctrination via our educational system to give the younger generations to believe that this is the way? Not to stand up for their equal rights as human beings under God or by themselves, but be basically controlled by the system in the system for the sake of the system.
Right.
How do we change that?
Well, that's a great question, and so allow me a general answer. All good comes from outliers. I don't know if you know the word outlier. It means the exceptional human being. I'll tell you an interesting story, not a story, but relate to you something interesting, and then come back to your point and my point. I mention this often. Many, many years ago, about 40 years ago, I read a book, and I don't remember the title, tragically, about people who rescued Jews during the Holocaust. Because it took a lot of courage. You risked your life if you hid a Jew. So obviously most people didn't. A very small number did. And I think it's as important to study goodness as it is to study evil. I understand evil better than I understand goodness. So these people studied rescuers of Jews, non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews, and they said, we came up with 4 generalizations about who saved Jews. I don't remember 3 of them because I knew them, or I thought they made perfect sense. The 4th one changed my life. They said, we found that a large number of the people who rescued Jews in the Holocaust were people who were considered eccentric prior to the war. Is eccentric clear? Somebody should say it in Danish? No, it is clear? Okay. I found that fascinating. It had never, ever occurred to me. By the way, since then, I love eccentrics. Whenever I meet an eccentric, I think this guy would have hidden me. Why am I telling this story? You are eccentrics. In this society, most of you would be considered eccentric. It's a fact. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're preoccupied with liberty and not welfare, makes you, essentially, you're an outlier. As I said earlier, some of you know an important English word. All good comes from outliers, from the exception. So you have to multiply yourselves. That's your task. And please understand, it's not easy. Most conservatives did not raise conservative children. When I meet conservatives, which I do all the time, because around America, so I frequently ask them, say, oh, hi, pleasure to meet you. We speak for a few minutes, and then I go, do you have children? Usually yes. How many? 2, 3, 4. And then I say, so what is your batting average? In America, batting average is, in baseball, how often do you get a hit? And they know exactly what my question is. What is your percentage of children who have kept your values? So I have found in the course of years that about 1/3 all their children kept their values, 1/3 none of their children kept their values, and 1/3 half their children, or some, or one, kept their values. A man, I take every year for 25 years, I took cruises around the world, from the South Antarctic to the North Sea. I've gone all over the world with listeners of mine. And next year we'll be in Bulgaria, Serbia, and Romania. We go to places most people don't go. And I've been to all of them, and I'm happy to go again. Anyway, on one cruise, a man comes over to me, and these cruises are not inexpensive. And he was a successful businessman and a Christian pastor. He was the pastor of a church, but he made his money in business. So he was a religious Christian and a successful businessman. So we were talking, and I said, "Tell me about your children." He said, "I have 3 sons. One received a PhD from Stanford, one from Yale, and one from Princeton." For most people, that's impressive achievement on this man's part. And then he added, "And they're all leftists." In other words, so let me get you clear, sir. If you had to do it all over again, you'd have been much happier if they never went to college. And he said, "That's exactly right." The failure of people with our values to teach these values to their children, let alone their friends' children, is the crisis. If we can't make our children into people with good values, how are we going to do it to others? Now, in some senses, it's very tough to influence your child. It might be easier to influence a stranger, which is fine, than influence strangers. That is why I know what my role in life has been. What I have done with my life is explain what people don't know how to explain. Christians don't know how to explain Christianity. Jews don't know how to explain Judaism. Conservatives don't know how to explain conservatism. Americans didn't know how to explain America. That's the tragedy. And I've devoted my life to one thing, explaining, because I know that if people understand this, many people will join us. You have to learn how to explain it, and then explain it.
My name is Nicholas Clark, and I'm curious, I caught on to something you mentioned regarding the notion of bad ideas. It's something that's been mentioned by many philosophers and cognitive scientists over the years, and it does suggest that if there's something inherently bad and something good, then we have a measure of objectivity. We have truth. Now, obviously, the snag is in identifying the truth, but it seems as if these notions of woke and other phenomena that dominate much of leftist politics is really the result of the lack of firm beliefs, an epistemological vacuum, if you will. Do you see a role for government or for teachers to provide kids with cognitive tools, a better cognitive toolkit to have a better appreciation of inherent notion of values, right and wrong?
That's what they're doing. Government and teachers are teaching their understanding of right and wrong. That's exactly, they did that in the Soviet Union, they did that in Nazi Germany. That's what governments and schools do. But their notions are not my notions. And that's why I, in America, promote homeschooling as much as possible. It's not popular in Europe. Most Europeans, including most European conservatives, are perfectly happy to have the government raise their child. Whoever has your child all day at school raises your child. Let's be honest. That's it. They have the most time with them. They spend more time with teachers than with parents. They spend sleeping time with parents, but their awake time is with teachers. And the teachers in America are teaching them horrible things, horrible lies. The schools are awful in the United States of America. Maybe they're great here. I'm not being cute. I don't know. But the only answer is for parents to actually be parents. So, you know, it's become clear I'm a big fan of the Bible. And writing this commentary has made me even more so. So I have advocated the Ten Commandments. That's my epistemological truth. God gave the Ten Commandments, and you should observe them. And of the Ten Commandments, I am now convinced that if you pushed me, which is the most important, this is new in my life, thanks to the left. Honor your father and mother. Parental authority is the route to freedom. Governments take away parental authority. That's the first thing they do. In America, parents have almost no authority, unless they homeschool their children. In America, in many states in the United States, if your daughter says she is a boy, you do not have to tell the parents that your daughter says she is a boy and that you are calling her by a boy's name and say he when speaking about her. You do, and that's if she's 10. You don't have to tell the parents. So we don't have much hope for our values until parents start being parents again. The purpose of a parent is not to give birth. It's not even to provide lunch. It is to give values. And the parents have failed in doing that, and it's very hard to do it if the government raises your children.
Okay, so first of all, thank you. My name is Lars Emil, and I have a background in biology, so I want to address something about secularity and religion. As a biologist, I really sympathize with you when you say that we suffer from the death of religion regarding values. But does religion shred its, let's call it, traditions in the speed that we need? Because as a biologist, I also would like to address that we have talked about removing the clitoris of women, for example, and I respect your that you don't want to eat shellfish and pork. And pardon me that I don't know your exact stance on Jewish traditions, but there's also, and I know there's a lot of conundrums here because we live in a secular society, but we have a queen and a monarchy, which is quite weird. And in the States, you're a republic, and people can have whatever religion they want. So does religion shred its, let's call it the ghost of the past with regarding to traditions? Could be gay marriage, could be the circumcision of boys, for example. Yeah.
I'm very happy you asked it. If I return to Denmark, I'll just give a lecture on that. So I have answers to all of those questions. First of all, I happen to be very supportive of European monarchies. I don't believe you're losing any freedom because you have a queen. What you have is tradition. I think there's a value in having tradition. We don't have one. We're a republic. I understand that. But you know, there's no king in Iran, and there's no freedom in Iran either. So royalty and freedom are not mutually exclusive. So I don't have an issue, and I do like traditions that are not bad should be kept. Traditions that are bad should be dropped. As regards some of the other specifics that you raised, so I circumcised my two sons as a Jew, and obviously I was circumcised at 8 days of age. I can tell you, I've done a lot of thinking about this. This particular tradition goes back 3,200 years. in the name of the right of a human to keep, of a male to keep his foreskin, I am not prepared to drop 3,200 years of a Jewish tradition that has been kept while Jews were killed. Jews did this in concentration camps if a child was born there. It was the only I don't cry easily. I cried at both rituals of my two sons. And I cried because I thought, wow, look at what I am doing in California in the 21st century or 20th century, and Abraham did in the Middle East 3,000 years ago. This connection that I felt was so profound that it brought tears to my eyes. I have to tell you, since I'm very open, I have never lamented the loss of my foreskin. I'm sorry. Go, speak, give him a microphone, because I'm always happy if people react, especially when they don't agree.
So, obviously, when you are old enough to make that decision yourself, I'm all in with that. But in Denmark, at least, it's also a hot issue right now that people are doing it, or at least it's been done to very young children that are definitely not managed to do that you've been.
You're right. So we have here a tension. I acknowledge it. There is a tension between the possibility that this boy will grow up and be very hurt that he doesn't have his foreskin, and I believe that is socially induced. We don't have that issue, at least that I know of, and I know a lot of Jewish history, that Jews had people who thought, men who thought, what a loss it is to their life. By the way, objectively, I have written about this because I have studied about this. There are doctors who believe it is very helpful to, in fact, remove the clitoris. I'm sorry, oh, God forbid, yes, the foreskin. That was Freudian. So I have no answer to the individual. I do. I'll be a little sharp here, not to you, God forbid. A man called my radio show. I have a great advantage in life. I have talked with more people than any living human being. Not two more people. The Pope speaks to more people every Christmas than I've spoken to in my life. But I've spoken with more people, I believe, than any living person. 40 years of talk radio is talking with people. So, and on every subject, guy calls me from San Francisco, not surprise, and says he is an activist for getting men their foreskin back. And I listened to him respectfully, and I said to him, sir, I don't mean to insult you, but I have to be honest, my reaction is you are very bored. Only bored people miss their foreskin. Okay? There's nothing to miss. You can have terrific sexual life without a foreskin. You can't have a terrific sexual life without a clitoris, so there's no comparison. You can't have a normal life if you're a female, if your breasts are removed, or if you're a male and your penis is removed. So I believe that this is a separate issue entirely, but I completely get your point. I just want to say one other thing about religion and science. Science has a very, very limited area of interest, the physical world, but it's very limited. As I have said all of my life, science does not tell me to be a good person. Science does not tell me how to be a good person. Science does not define good and evil. Science, if you will, if you follow Darwin, is the survival of the fittest. That's what Hitler said. He was a big fan of survival of the fittest. That's why he killed incapacitated Germans before he killed Jews. So science gives no wisdom. Science gives no understanding of good and evil. No reason to live. But science saved my life. My personal life. Doctors have saved my life. I'm deeply grateful to them. But I don't know if they were dummies or not. I only knew they knew how to perform surgery. So I learned nothing from science other than science. And no one claims that if you're religious, you learn surgery from religion. You learn different things from each. That's my take. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to Denmark. A couple of years ago, Dr. Jordan Peterson sent out a warning to all parents in the Anglo-Saxon world. He said, don't send your kids to the humanities. Don't send your kids to the humanities. Because he thought, obviously, that the battle was lost, that in the higher education, they are dominated by left-of-center views. I'm so blessed that I can say that of my 3 children, their conservative convictions are firmly established. And if the good Lord is willing, it will be like that for the rest of their lives. Because they are aware that they should not do the mistakes that their father did. And they are aware of the brainwashing that they have been exposed to through their years in school and high schools and other places. A form of brainwashing that's taking place these days is the domination of the left's obsession with Armageddon. There have been many Armageddons. There have been global overpopulation, global cooling, the nuclear winter, and now, you know, it's the green god that has taken the place, and that we all have to obey, right? So I would like to hear, and I actually hope that you would touch upon that topic. What is your take on the domination that the climate debate has today? Because, you know, if you ask the simplest questions and come up with the most simple suggestions to alternative solutions to avoid something that may be inevitable, then you are regarded as some sort of, at the level of a Holocaust denier, right? You know, it's like that, and they will mock you and call it die Klimalüge, right? If you have some let's say, some sound objections to spending trillions of dollars of something that may not even be a threat to our global existence. Thank you.
I agree. The world is probably getting warmer, and I don't particularly care. It is not going to destroy itself. We've been warned so often. I don't understand how many 12-year periods there can be when we finally say, maybe we shouldn't panic. 1990, Al Gore warned, 12 years, it will be too late. In 2002, he warned, in 12 years, it will be too late. In 2014, he warned that in 12 years, it will be too late. We're just a few years away from the third 12-year too late period. At what point do we look at them and say, you have been crying wolf? This is like, you know, the boy who cried wolf, and then the real wolf came, and it was too late. These people, they all go to their conferences in private jets with all their carbon emissions to discuss global warming. What will happen to Europe when you convert within a few years to only electric cars? In Germany and elsewhere, you can't even heat your home without spending a good portion of your income on electricity. And they will find enough electricity to electrify cars? Really? And what will happen to Germany, and I mention Germany because it's the largest economy on the European continent, and it's largely, or not largely, but it is to a large extent based on the car. Well, this is the end of Mercedes and Audi and BMW for the Germans, because they were developed as gas-powered cars. Will they be able to dominate the market with electric cars like they did? I don't know. People don't want to drive electric cars. With all the subsidies in America, you get so many tax advantages and so much subsidy, and you get to drive in special lanes, and still the vast majority of Americans, like me, buy gas-powered cars. I like pulling into a gas station, getting gas in 5 minutes, and then driving 400 miles, which is what, 700 kilometers, 600 kilometers? You don't get that on an electric car. And I love Elon Musk for buying Twitter. So I have no problem with Elon Musk and his Tesla. But it's not about the climate, and there's proof. Every environmentalist activist is a phony if they don't support nuclear power. Just know that. They're phony. Nuclear power is clean, incredibly safe, but they don't support it. Why don't they? It's a very, very powerful question. Why don't they push for nuclear power? Why only wind and sun? I'm not sure I even know the answer. Maybe it's some romantic view of the world. You have an answer?
You're going to own nothing and be happy about it. It's all
You will own nothing and be happy about it?
It's all the WEF agenda
For the elites to rule the world. Yeah, I believe that too. Yeah, it's about control. Yeah, they want to control your life. But please know, if you have any relatives, and I'm sure every one of you does, who doesn't understand your view on global warming, just ask them if they're for nuclear power. And if they're not, say, I love you very much, you're my cousin, you're my son, you're my daughter, you're my wife. But it's clear you're not science-based in your thinking. If you were science-based, you would be pro-nuclear power.
Yeah, this is kind of a touchy issue, and you piqued my curiosity about your opinion in saying that in the hundreds of PragerU videos during the Trump administration, you didn't mention his name. So I just like to focus on that a little bit, because right now it looks like, in retrospect, they're kind of two Trumps, right? There was a Trump of the first 2 years who, kept promises like crazy, even had his Trump list of 330-something promises kept, and I was raving about him and how he was one of the 9 best presidents in U.S. history. And then there was a Trump of the last year who was funding horrible governors in the U.S. and kept the funding going. And then there was a kind of the intermediate Trump, the Trump of the 3rd year of his administration, who said, they got to get the vaxes about the smallpox vaccine, even though he had run on vaccine freedom. So right now there are kind of 3 camps about it, and I'm interested in where you fall down on it. One is the kind of X-22 report idea, trust the plan, Trump's been in control all along, he's going to be reinstated, etc. I hope that's true, but especially since he let Joe Biden assume the presidency, having won, I am firmly convinced, 0 U.S. states. I decrease my confidence in that. The second view is the David Knight view. You might be familiar with him. He used to be a host on InfoWars, and he has his own show, and he said that there was Trump was in on the conspiracy all along, and he was just showing his fangs there. And the third one, where I come down, is the Alex Jones perspective, InfoWars perspective, which is Trump started out with good intentions, working 16, 18 hours a day, etc., to achieve those things, but he was profiled because he was a germaphobe. I consider myself Scandinavia's top Trumpologist. He was a germaphobe. He used to wear gloves because he didn't want to shake hands with too many people, and cowed, and now he can't back off it. I'm interested where you fall down on that.
Yeah, I don't agree with any of it, okay? Just for the record, there are 2 groups that are preoccupied with Donald Trump, those who hate him and those who are crazy about him. I am not preoccupied with Donald Trump. I am preoccupied with America and liberty. I thought he was a great president. I thought he was not one of 9 great presidents. I thought he was the greatest president since Lincoln. I have no interest in his running again because I want to win. I only ask one question in American politics: how can we defeat the left? I have no other question. I'm not loyal to Trump. I'm not loyal to DeSantis. I am not loyal to anything but the American liberty agenda. That's all I care about. And I don't think that Trump would win, because when Trump runs, and I loved him, I supported him every day of his administration. just for the record. However, when he runs, he's the issue. When anyone else runs, the left is the issue. And I want to keep the left as the issue. So I'm not crazy about his running. If he runs, I will go crazy to get him elected, just for the record. But Alex Jones is evil, okay? He's a sick piece of shit for what he said about the families whose kids were killed in Florida. He should never be quoted by decent people. Thank you. Connecticut.
Yes, so I have a question to you about the inequality in the US. And I really want to focus on the different groups in society, because even today we still see a huge economical difference between the black population and the white population in the US. So I want to ask you, what do you think has caused this inequality, and how do you think the US should solve it?
The great inequality, I'll give you a very interesting statistic cited by one of the greatest American thinkers, Thomas Sowell, who's also black. And he has showed incontrovertibly, and there's no question, he shows the data. For example, the black family was as intact, in other words, a black child was as likely to grow up with mother and father married in a home as a white child in the 1930s and 40s. What happened? The Democrats killed the black family. They said basically, we will solve all black problems with a bigger government. And we will pay you if you have children and are not married. So when you pay people, just like with student loans, if you allow people to take loans and then pay them not to pay them back, more people will take student loans and colleges will raise tuition. The government meddling has been the biggest damage to black life since segregation, since racism was a law in the South. So that's my answer. The government has done terrible things. Donald Trump lowered the black unemployment rate to the lowest point ever recorded. So why don't blacks vote for him? That's what he asked. He said, after all the damage Democrats have done to you, why don't you give Republicans a chance? And he was called a racist for making that statement. He was called an anti-Semite for saying to American Jews, I don't understand why you don't support me. Israeli Jews support me. I've done more for Israel than virtually any American president. Why don't you support me? And he was called an anti-Semite for saying that. The man has a Jewish daughter and Jewish grandchildren. He's an anti-Semite? I don't think he hates any group. He hates the left. That's a joy. Anyway, that's what I believe. The answer to all human problems are values. That's the only answer. Not government, not handouts, not free money, not welfare. It's values. You want to succeed in America? Probably anywhere. It's very simple. Get a high school education, get a job, get married, and then have children. You will succeed.
Så det den her på den 4. række. Blå jakke, hvid skjorte.
Hello, my name is Albert Berg. Mr. Prager, is there a difference between fact and opinion? Does it matter? And how is that related to the importance you put on religion?
Religion teaches values. I don't read, feel free to respond if this doesn't satisfy you. Religion teaches values. I don't look to the Bible for a history of the Middle East. A history of the Middle East can be written by a secular scholar of the Middle East. Perfectly fine. That's fact. But again, the only way to lead a good life is through wisdom. Religion gives wisdom. Now, you may say wisdom is an opinion and not a fact. I never thought of it that way. You're causing me to think, is wisdom fact or opinion? So is it an opinion that men do better when they get married, which is a religious position. It's also a fact. Statistically, among other things, single men commit nearly all the violence that men commit. Men commit most violence, and single men overwhelmingly commit the violence, and married men make more money than single men. So it's interesting that biblical wisdom is borne out by fact. But I guess there can be statements of wisdom that, now that I think of it, I can't think of it. I can't think of a non-fact-based piece of wisdom. So in that sense, religion, because it gives wisdom, you can't give wisdom based on a lie, right? I mean, I think that would be fair to say. So I would say that religious wisdom is fact-based. And I'm glad you raised it, because I never actually thought of it that way.
Okay, last question. Yeah.
Okay, back to the circumcision. Like, I don't know if you know that Theodor Herz, who has been seen as a father of Zionism and father of Israel, and who has a picture of him inside the parliament, he didn't circumcise his sons because he says being Jewish has nothing to do with the circumcision. You can be a Jew without being circumcised. Have you heard about Theodor Herz saying this, and what's your attitude, or is there a movement within Jewish groups like about non-circumcision?
I assume that the average secular Israeli circumcises his son. I don't know it for a fact, but I suspect that that is the case. It would be, even today, most Israelis are not religious, but they would circumcise most Israelis fast on Yom Kippur, which surprises many people, including many American Jews. There is a sense that there is something, even if I don't believe in God, even if I don't believe in the Torah, but I am a Jew, and there are certain things I just want to keep. So my answer to secular Jews is, and by the way, you cannot be a secular Christian, but you can be a secular Jew. This is an important distinction to understanding Jews. Judaism is a people and a religion. Christianity is only a religion. It's not a criticism, it's just a statement. So you can be an atheist Dane or a religious Dane, right? Because Dane is a people. So Jews are a people, so you could be a religious or an atheist Jew. However, the grandchildren of atheist Jews tend not to be Jewish. And so I don't know what the story with Herzl's grandchildren was. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't stay Jewish or they started circumcising their children. That would be my answer, and because that has been the rule. It's been a very big mistake of Jews thinking that they could keep the Jewish people alive without keeping the Jewish religion alive. And I'm not an Orthodox Jew. I have Orthodox beliefs, but I don't have all Orthodox practices. And that I'm somewhat of an outlier, somewhat of an anomaly. I think the Torah is from God, but I don't practice all. I practice many, but not all of Orthodox law. But that's not, I don't think any of you are particularly curious about that. But I just thought, for honesty's sake, and since there's a video of this, I should just make clear. Without Judaism, the Jews won't survive, and they have never survived. So the grandchildren of secular Jews, and by the way, just to leave you with one interesting fact, since you're getting a lesson in Jewish history here, it was secular Jews, not religious Jews, who founded the modern state of Israel. Many religious Jews were opposed to it because it wasn't founded with the arrival of the Messiah, or it wasn't founded by religious Jews. And so what happened was a lot of religious Jews stayed in Europe. Secular Jews who were Zionists went to Israel. Or as one bitter joke puts it, the optimists went to the gas chambers and the pessimists went to Israel. Happy note to finalize my talk, isn't it? Thank you all very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all.